Hey, welcome back. So this is gonna be our 5th video in this 10-part video installment. And today we're gonna be talking about the Gymkhana and what I see to be the best and I guess best uses and best practices for the keys, and then like kind of divvy it up. So if you have like, hey, this key, that key, that's when we would open this up for like Q&A on our Zoom meetings. Or if you have a question like what type of key, post it in the comments or email me and we can kind of go that way. This is basically what I see is the best when it comes to time efficiency and I guess user friendliness for me, but everyone's different. But maybe you can take my advice. So a really good example, like I mentioned, if we're doing edge cuts like for a Toyota, yes, all day, every day for those Toyotas as edge cuts, like keys like that. Pretty straightforward. I stick it in the Gymkhana. That's going to give me a nice, clean, crisp cut, like from the factory. So if they have like an old 2005 Toyota and it's just worn and just like it doesn't work in the door, I can use the Gymkhana with the basics when it's calibrated and pull that code and then verify and check and then cut a new key. Now, later on in the videos after I cover the key line, we will go into the advanced settings when it comes to the direct code option and the modify code option, which is going to be a little more detailed, but it's going to be like more advanced. It's at the end of the class. That's going to be after you understand the basics of calibration and understanding the make, model, and year options. Otherwise, it just won't make sense. So stay tuned. Now, when it comes to like the turn keys like this, making a new key, amazing. But also when we're looking at other keys, so if someone has like a Nissan, it's a push start. Think about this, is the key ever like really used in the door? Not really. Maybe that one person when the battery's dead, they have to manually use it. But majority of the times you can use it on here, the Silca, and you're fine. Now, what about for some of those older keys like the Chevy Silverados, where it's gonna be using like a key like this, where it has that shoulder. This is gonna be like the transponder type. Now, some keys you'll see out there where it's a straight blade with a chip in there. Some have that shoulder. Now for me, I made separate videos on this. Now when you stick that key in there and at the correct orientation where it says, I believe U0, the Gymkhana pinches here and then the whole key can like flap around, instant miscut, and you can damage your cutting bit because that key is loose and the cutting bit's just cutting and it causes severe damage. And it's very scary the first time you see that. So I made a video where you slide it all the way forward and the tracer is able to touch like, oh, there's a key there. And then it starts cutting, and this is gonna be past U1, past U0, it's gonna be like further up, so it'd be like U-1. And that's a really good thing. So that's for those old keys. But if it's like somewhat decent, A-jaw, D-jaw, no problem. The next is gonna be like the Silverados, where it's a high security. Now, a lot of people, I guess at the dealership, they charge an arm and a leg to cut these. You got one option and two options here, but I've noticed for some of those ignitions, if it's like a 2019, 2018, 2017, where it's that one, the manual procedure, or if you clone it, I noticed the ignition is very tight because you have like a brand new key. So you wanna make a brand new cut. If you cut with the 303, it's just gonna copy that worn key. Yeah, it's maybe worn for 5 years, but it's gonna translate that wornness into the new key, and it could work smooth in the door, but not in the ignition, where it's like, instead of like half a pound of force to turn, it's like 3 pounds, and it's like, ooh, it's that nervous feeling. You really don't wanna do that. That's why cutting with the Gymkhana, and make sure you have the right year range, the right number of cuts. It's either 8 or 10. And then you can cut a brand new factory key and you can walk over there with your eyes closed, not even looking, put it in ignition, and it's smooth like butter. So that's a really, really easy way to do that. Or correct new cutting bits and tracers so it's 1-to-1 perfect. That's another option, but this, you can't really go wrong with it as long as it's decoded correctly. Also, when I talk about decoding, I guess if you're following along, go to Home Depot, go to Walmart, get a digital caliper. These are like $7, $8. I got the ones with nylon. I'm not getting the metal ones. But for $8, it's gonna last me 2 years, 3 years before it breaks. I really don't care. I can get a new one. A metal one is like $20. Depends. But if you have one of these, you're able to follow along in the next class where we talk about more details of the Gymkhana when it comes to the modify and the direct options, and also how to troubleshoot with some of these keys. So that's going to be some of the stuff. Now, if we're, I guess, going down the list, I'll look at my inventory. So an Acura flip key or turn key, pretty simple. If it's somewhat worn or good looking, I would say if it's like 70%, 80%, 303. If it's old and worn and beat up, Gymkhana. Now, if we're looking at a CDJ, like some of those old Dodge trucks or old like Jeeps and everything, I'll use it on here if needed, or I'll stick it on the Silca. So going back into like the CDJs, like the Fabics, those keys are rarely used. Silca, no need to cut them on the Gymkhana. It's going to take longer to decode it and then cut it. And you don't really want to like decode by looking at your eyes and typing in the codes. There's a chance for error just based on that. And then looking at like the Ford keys. Ford, simple, unless it's like a high security, like for some of like the 2016s and ups where it's like the high security blade or the key insert, you can stick it on here. Again, make sure that you're paying attention to how it locks in. And then going down to like the GM key, like the 200, 205s, 400s, 600s, things like that, you can use in here with AJA or DJA. And then like I mentioned, the 715, 800s, you can use in here to make sure it's precise if needed. Just depends on your other tools. And then looking at, I'm just looking at my inventory, Honda keys, pretty straightforward. I have a video where I do a Honda key on the 303 and the Gymkhana. It's like a minute and change versus like 5 minutes, I believe. So it just depends on the speed and also the inserts or if they're the primary key. Hyundais and Kias and Infinities, pretty straightforward. The Honda boys and Kia boys, you can use a USB, so just cut it manually with the key line 303. You don't really need to use those on here. It's just going to be a waste of your time. For Lexus key inserts, the key line. Now if we look at Mazda and Mitsubishi, Mazda keys are pretty tricky. I read somewhere that each code has to be different, so it's going to be odd, even, so it's going to be really wiggly, more intense than like other keys out there. It's pretty good security. I still have really good luck manually cutting because I can follow that. Sometimes with the Gymkhana, it has issues with that. I have to go back in and manually check and measure and then fix one section, and then it's fine. Mitsubishi keys, kind of like a Toyota key. You can stick them in here because it's Japanese based, I believe, if you really need to. But then you have shoulder stops and all these different things. Make sure it's the right year range and everything. And then looking at our Subaru keys. Subaru keys are giving like a wide key, kind of like a Toyota key. Yeah, stick them in here. It'll say contact dealer, something like that. That's where you need to look at the pattern, not just look for the code. You're gonna notice in my video, I'm not really focusing on the shortcuts or the verification. Oh, code detected. Because if you're just relying on that and you can't problem solve and see if the pattern matches the cut of the key plus the display, then you're kind of missing the point. You're waiting to be told this is correct. But if you can logically deduce that that is correct, then you're gonna be more suited for doing this without getting like held up. So like Subaru keys were kind of like a Honda key where it's like high security. You can do it on the 303, no problem. Toyota keys, like I mentioned, the blade keys, like the turn keys, Gymkhana, just for that precision because they do get kind of worn. And I guess also segue for those Nissan turn keys that are like the Titans and like the Sentras that are like 2007s and stuff like that. They get pretty beat up. I noticed Nissan keys are just very, very soft metal. You'll see them. If you cut on here, it's just going to be a bad copy with a bad key, Gymkhana. But then you have to use your tools and like kind of measure it, and then you can make that Nissan key work again. And then Volkswagen keys. Unfortunately, you can't use a Volkswagen key on this because you have a U-jaw. You have to spend about $400 to get a V-jaw, recalibrate everything, and then you can cut a Volkswagen. Or you can just cut it on the 303 and you're done. It costs you $0. So that's a cool thing. I have thought about, since I have two Gymkhanas, have one for Volkswagen, one for like Universal. But I do like maybe 2 Volkswagens a month, maybe. on good times, but it's not really worth it when I can just use the 303. And then for other keys, I really don't focus on Europeans. I notice a lot of people don't focus on Europeans because it's just hassles and everything. But when it comes to like Mercedes and BMWs and Volvos, you do have options on here with the U-jaw, so it is nice. It's very simple. Think of those as like a Fiat key, or like a Dodge ProMaster key, or think of it as like a Ford High Security, but just reversed. And that's pretty simple. As long as, again, you understand make, model, and year, you can find and you can cut. You can also look, you can explore and see, hey, can I do this? Hey, can I fit the key in here? Can I fit the new key and the customer's key in here, or in here, or in here, and make sure it works? A really good example of keys that don't work would be like the bats for like a 2000 Corvette or old school Buick. That bats chip, it just won't fit in here, so obviously you can't do that. You'd use the silk gun. So that's going to be that. I think I covered majority of everything. If I missed something, go ahead and ask away. I'll have my email in the description below. Go ahead and ask, or if you want to comment directly on this video, you're more than welcome, of what machine I would use. But majority of the ones for precision, you want the Gymkhana, but it does take longer. If you want quick and easy, and if it's already a good looking key, manual, and you're fine. Cool, so that's going to be that. Looking into the next video, we're going to jump into the key line, which is a manual cutter, and then I'm going to show you how I do the qualifications for people in my organization. If they can manually cut a Honda key, then they can jump into the rest of the tech world, but they basically get graded by the Gymkhana. So it's their eyes, their hands, their brain versus the Gymkhana. If they pass, cool, they're good. So other than that, thanks for watching. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up and share with your friends if they're in this business as well, so everyone can learn and we can all get better together as a community. Other than that, have a great day, and I will see you next time. See ya. Bye.